James, it's great to welcome you here today, and we're very much looking forward to hearing some wonderful organ music. Before we let you loose on that big instrument at the back, tell us a little bit about your background in music and how you came to play the organ.
Hello, by the way. I came to music through growing up in a very musical family, a very musical household, and through my parish church choir. I never did the chorister thing. I sang in my local church choir and started singing at school in the chapel choir as well, and was learning the piano from a young age as well as that. And so, I was exposed to the organ from the age of about 2 or 3, being taken to church in my pram by my mother, and I was just desperate to start playing and make all the noise, and then when I was big enough, at about age 9 or 10, that's when I started having a go, and then I started having lessons at 11, and then it's sort of gone on from there. So I did a gap year in Truro Cathedral, studied at the Royal Academy, and then have sort of done various bits and pieces, freelancing jobs, and since then. Excellent.
And you said about the link between singing and obviously choirs and church buildings generally. There is an inextricable link with organs and choirs and everything. So tell us a little bit about how your organ playing has been distinguished between work with choirs versus solo repertoire. Have the two always been equal side by side, or was it more accompanying with choirs and less solo, or vice versa?
I've always done, I would say, a pretty equal amount of solo playing and accompanimental playing, and they complement each other beautifully. The thing you learn from accompanying is how to breathe with music. The organ is a wind instrument essentially, but it is mechanical. There is a constant supply of air, so it's very easy to forget to let the instrument and the space that you're in breathe where the music needs to. And so I find that feeds really well into solo playing. And then the reverse is that solo playing, you have 100% of the control over the music, and when you're accompanying, you don't want to be thinking that you're playing second fiddle. You have a 50-50 role with if it's a soloist or with your choir and conductor. There should be an equal balance of who's leading, and so that sort of artistic license, I think, feeds really well into accompanying to allow you your own expression from the piano or the organ.
Yeah. And now you have one of the ultimate organ playing jobs in the world, perhaps, as organist at St Paul's Cathedral down the road here in London. What does a normal week look like there? Obviously, you've got a world-class choirs to collaborate with and work with as part of the liturgy, as part of concerts, but you also have one of the best organs around, on which there are recitals and solo performances. So tell us a little bit about what a normal week, if there is such a thing, may look like there.
That's a big question, whether there is such a thing at St Paul's. But the most normal week looks like chorister rehearsals before school in the morning, and as of September we will also be doing, we will be splitting the boy choristers and the girl choristers and have 2 full treble lines. So one set of choristers will do a rehearsal while the other set of choristers does a morning Eucharist, sings at the morning 8 o'clock Mass on the cathedral floor. And there are probationer rehearsals as well going on simultaneously. And then evensong at 5 o'clock, which again, the other set, they'll swap over for evensong, and then the other set will rehearse during evensong. That then continues all the way through the week. In between, there are meetings all through the daytime, training, all sorts of things like that. And then lots of chorus rehearsal on Saturday with another Saturday evensong, and then we do 3 services on a Sunday with the choir. So we do Matins and Eucharist on a Sunday morning, and then a full evensong. And then there's a 4:30 recital every Sunday, usually by a guest organist, and then a 5:30 Eucharist, which is organ only.
Wow.
So that's
you must get through a monumental amount of music each week, whole range of composers, range of styles. I mean, it must be enormous.
Taking the Mag and Nunc as 2 separate pieces of
Yeah.
music, we get through 28, 27 or 8
Do you?
pieces of music a week,
Gosh.
which is a ludicrous amount. Even splitting that up between 3 organists,
Yeah.
that's, you know,
And it must be an amazing mix of familiar and also constantly finding new things and rediscovering things, and it must be wonderful.
yeah. In order for the repertoire to not get repetitive,
Yeah.
we get through a lot of music, and of course we've had lots of commissions written for St Paul's over the years, which are unique to us. So there are some amazing pieces by Judith Bingham, Judith Weir, Nigel Hess. So we frequently put those in as well, just to keep them in the repertoire, as they're very special for us.
Before we get on to the pieces that we're going to hear you play now, tell us a little bit about the organ here. What makes it interesting, different, unique?
So this is a Klais, a German organ builder based in Bonn. Very, very active through the 20th century and into the 21st. Often sort of leading the way with technology, and some of the things that Klais are doing in the 21st century are really, really amazing. This is, I'm not entirely sure when this organ was built, but it's 20th century, and it's a sort of slightly eclectic instrument. So there are romantic elements. So the swell, the top manual, is a more romantic division with some strings, big harmonic flutes, and big French style reeds. The positive, the bottom manual, is very Baroque in nature, with quite sharp, bright principals, mixtures, and some rather sort of electric reed sounds. I think it's the only way I can describe it. And then the great in the middle is sort of halfway. It's German romantic, I would say, with 3 quite big 8-foot stops, and it's got quite a lot of depth to it. So between those 3 manuals, you've got quite a lot of versatility to work with there.
And when it's all going, and we'll hear the full organ being played, would you describe it? Is it a sort of big warm sound, or is it quite a sort of sharp focused sound, or somewhere in between? Or
it sort of does all. It does all the things you want it to. It's got all the brightness, so there lots of mixture stops. The really bright ones at the top of the texture, they really do sort of pierce the air. But it's also got quite a lot of fundamental at the bottom, with a 32-foot rumbling away.
Great.
At the bottom, so it's got quite a lot of power. And of course the console is right underneath the pipes, and whenever that's the case, you do feel as though you are, you have the ultimate power.
So what are we going to hear first?
The first piece I'm going to play is a Vivaldi concerto movement. I grew up and listening to a recording of L'Estro Armonico, which is the first set of concertos that Vivaldi had published in Amsterdam, and the concerto spread through Europe like wildfire. They were extremely popular, and lots of composers studied them to understand concerto form, ritornello form, including Bach, who transcribed 2 of this set. There are 12 concertos in the set. He transcribed 2 of them for the organ and another 4 for harpsichord. And then about 10 years ago, I transcribed the 10 that Bach didn't do for the organ. And this is the first movement of the D major concerto, which has also been arranged for trumpet and organ and various other combinations.
Brilliant. This is your arrangement.
This is my arrangement. Yeah.
Fantastic. So from Vivaldi, we move to one of, if not the greatest Baroque composer, and no organ recital performance could be complete without a piece of Bach. So tell us why you've chosen this particular piece.
You're absolutely right. Bach he's the god of music, certainly for organists. So I had to include some. And when thinking about a shortish piece of Bach, but something which I think demonstrates his expressive capabilities, I chose the chorale prelude on Nun komm der Heiden Heiland, which is a piece for Advent. And for me, Advent, this is a piece that is, I cannot imagine going through the season of Advent without hearing or playing this piece at least once. It is just synonymous with that time of year. And there's got a beautiful running bass line with very gentle accompaniment in the left hand with the ornamented chorale melody in the right hand part.
I think one of the things I like about this piece is, as you mentioned, that walking bass line, although it's quiet and it's quite understated, there's just this sense of it all just sort of flows forward. There's something very sort of organic and natural about the way the music just progresses all the way through, as well as being extremely expressive.
Yeah, and I suppose the season of Advent is one of expectation, as well as reflecting on ourselves. You know, as we do in Advent and Lent, it's a time for introspection as well. But we know that we know we're preparing for something, and that walking bass line is it's always leading us forward into the next thing. It's sort of what's happening next. So I think whether he ever thought of these things actively thought about them, or whether it was just his own religion
and
naturally
inspired.
came out. Maybe who knows, but that's a nice way to think about this piece.
Let's have a listen. So from Bach, we're moving forward a few hundred years until to the early 20th century, and to Whitlock, who's not necessarily a composer that's a household name like Bach is. Tell us a little bit about Whitlock and this piece and the set of pieces that this is from.
Whitlock is, I think, a hugely underrated composer. He is dearly loved by those who know his music. He died very, very young, and so there's that question of what might he have been capable of had he lived longer. But the music he left is quite extraordinary. Most of it is for the organ, but he did write some things for orchestra, for choir as well. But his background was in the cinema organ.
Okay.
So he's the photo that often goes on the front of the editions of his music is him at a big cinema organ console, and so his music is, whilst it is, you would say, firmly in the classical tradition, that you can often hear slight, not quite jazz, but you can hear that style from the cinema organ kind of seeping into
it's slightly that sort of British light music style, isn't it? Where there's always a really good strong melody to latch onto, and the harmonies can be decorative or colourful or functional, but there's always a strong melody, isn't there?
Always a strong melody, and this piece has a very, very strong melody. This is the Salix from the Plymouth Suite, which is a suite of five movements. This is the fourth one. And there's a whole range within this suite. So the movements aren't long. It's not a particularly hefty work. There's a toccata at the end. The opening movement is a big sort of grand 3-time romp, for want of a better word. There's a scherzo in the middle. It's very, very sweet, and a piece I hold quite dear, because it was my second ever public organ recital, which was in Hereford Cathedral, through which I got through the Oundle summer organ course.
Right.
I played the whole of the Plymouth Suite, and that for me felt like quite a big deal at the time to play a whole suite. And so I've always thought this
channeling
piece
young James.
Yeah.
We'll hear a bit of Whitlock. So from the understated beauty of the Whitlock, but still that slightly playful edge to it, we're going completely mad for the final number, and to the present day with the multi-talented Iain Farrington, who I think is a pianist, organist, composer, arranger, a brilliant musical mind of today. Tell us why you've picked this, aside from the fact it's obviously a brilliant piece.
Well, it's pure jazz for the organ, which is not there's not a huge amount of jazz on the organ. It's a short piece. It's the first movement of Fiesta, which is 7 movements long, all sorts of jazz styles incorporated into this. He wrote it. There's a piano solo version as well, which he recorded, which I remember hearing when I was a youngster and thinking it was absolutely amazing. In fact, I mentioned Oundle beforehand. I remember one of the courses they do a whole giveaway of music, and I picked up the organ version of Fiesta, went and listened to it, and just thought this is absolutely amazing. Yeah. And about 7 years later, I had the courage to try and learn it. It's an amazing piece. It suits an organ like this, with all the brightness, with all the sort of the punch that this organ has. And it's always a great sort of finisher to any sort of program as an encore or even a sort of grab people by the scruff of the neck at the start of a program.
Absolutely. So going out with a bang, this is Iain Farrington. James, after that electric finish, I think all that's left to say is thank you. It's been wonderful to hear you play and also to chat, and also to acknowledge that we have worked together for over a decade now. Let's hope there are many more decades to come and lots of great music on the way. But thank you, and we wish you all the best with your playing.
Thank you so much.